So, uh, welcome to the channel. I came across this video recently, and I had some thoughts. Kind of wanted to synthesize something and put it into words. This is a video by John Green. It's called Against Nihilism. And he makes some interesting points here. And I kind of just wanted to go through it. Brief overview, I guess. He notices, pretty obviously, we have a nihilist strain in our culture, and finding ways to address it. But I think I'll let John speak for himself and kind of pause and kind of talk as we go.
Good morning, Hank. It's Tuesday. I was recently asked to speak to a group of college students, and here is some of what I said. There's a certain strain of nihilism that has grown popular of late. Everything's trash, so why even bother? Nothing matters in the long run anyway. And I'm sympathetic to these perspectives because the world is profoundly unjust, and our shared challenges are overwhelming.
So, I'm just trying to articulate it so we can kind of get it out there. He's talking about nihilism, saying that there is no such thing as justice, that everything is messed up beyond belief. What did you say just now?
Why even bother? Nothing matters in the long run.
And so, through this, nothing matters. And like you said, why even bother? Like, why should we care? I think these are fair questions, right? If there's nothing to care about, why care? Yeah, if nothing comes to fruition, then what is the point? I think that's a fair question. Let's see how he addresses this.
Run anyway. And I'm sympathetic to these perspectives because the world is profoundly unjust and our shared challenges are overwhelming. And also, yes, I am aware that nothing matters in the long run. Something like 275 million stars are going to die.
Okay, so this is where it kind of already gets off the rails, and I'm kind of confused. This is what nihilism says. Now, I guess he's talking about a nihilist reaction. If nothing matters in the long run, then what's the purpose? And the ability to work yourself out of this hole is extremely difficult. I'll talk a little bit more about Nietzsche later, but I think he has a lot to say about this. He was supremely scared of nihilism, beyond belief. He was desperate to find an alternative. I think his alternatives were kind of not very well thought, but at least it was an alternative, right? But I think John is falling into this trap already of kind of giving in too quickly. But I have a lot more to say about this. I kind of wrote something up, and we'll
tomorrow. And in that context, it's a little difficult to get excited about earthly affairs like building bridges and sewer systems and voting. But I reject nihilism, not only because I believe that nihilism, like all straightforward answers to life's great questions, is inadequate, but also because I think human life itself is imbued with meaning.
And so I guess the question is, where does this meaning come from? I have a difficult problem with this video, mostly because it never reaches beyond a purely humanist kind of basic enlightenment understanding of humanity. It doesn't ever draw on anything before it. It kind of stands on its own and just kind of says people are important because we are? Question mark? I'm desperate for more. I kind of need something else from John, but as we'll see, we won't really get a lot. Here, let's go back.
Is in sewer systems and voting. But I reject nihilism, not only because I believe that nihilism, like all straightforward answers to life's...
And looking at nihilism as a straightforward answer, I think I don't have anything wrong with the straightforward answer. I think sometimes straightforward answers are more honest, and that's what I actually think that can be admirable about the nihilists, is that the thoughtful nihilist is thinking it through, is looking at the ends of their philosophy and saying this is it, and then goes through the entirety of it. But what we're left with is kind of just this. On John Green's, is like it's fence sitting. I don't know how else to put it. It's not going all the way into nihilism, but not going all the way into some actual structural meaning of humanity. But we'll let him keep talking.
Questions is inadequate, but also because I think human life itself is imbued with meaning. I wrote my book, The Anthropocene Reviewed, because I wanted to pay attention to where my attention was going. And by attention, I don't mean like the ability to focus without distraction. I mean consciousness itself, our soul stuff, where that's going. After all, what and who you care about.
I think this is a great intuition. And I really enjoyed hearing about this part, about his insight into attention. And this has been something that's been on my mind, and kind of in this area of the internet. A lot of people are thinking about attention, and I think he has a good intuition for this.
About what and who you devote your soul stuff to when taken together will be known as your life. And through 3.5 years of writing the book, I learned some stuff about like Staphylococcus aureus and how grocery stores came to exist. But the biggest thing I learned, and it surprised me, is that I am broadly in favor of humans. Now, I want to be clear that as species go, we are a catastrophe. We have caused countless extinctions, we've poisoned rivers and caused famines and murdered the innocent. Like, we aren't the first form of life to become so powerful and ubiquitous that our very success endangers the planet's climate and biodiversity. Cyanobacteria caused a mass extinction over 1 billion years ago, but we're the first species to know what we're doing while we do it. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is that we are also really interesting. We know the structure of DNA. We make art and other things like sports and cappuccino and YouTube that we don't technically need to survive, but still kind of need.
I think there are things that seem to separate humanity from the rest of the world. But on a purely scientific view, like why is that more important? Why should we value this group more than the other? What actually marks a distinction between? I think it's pretty basic to say that evolution is a constant flux of like, we're going from one species to another species, and we're just kind of, there's no like clear distinction, like line, like this is a new species. I think that was always a thing that kind of hit my mind of like, this is a really difficult, in a purely materialistic worldview, it's really difficult to distinguish anything, much less humanity specifically. He talks about our need for art. I think that is something that, again, points us in the right direction of like actually getting an answer, but it's never pushed further. It's like, I don't know, it's interesting, right? But it's not, it doesn't dig you into anything. It's like cool, but like, I'm not gonna say that the world matters now because we have a specific type of bug that could create new and creative songs or something like that, right? Like, if I'm from a nihilist perspective trying to look into this, this isn't giving me anything. This is like, oh, like, I've already thought through this, right? I think he kind of underestimates true nihilism. He might be trying to grappling with the college age kid who kind of got into politics and found that it was all pointless, and so now they're kind of giving up. I was in a similar position, but I don't think this would have helped me. I think personally, I think I need more hard answers. But if this helps somebody get through a difficult time, I'm thankful for John for that. But I think this doesn't get to the root of the issue.
We know what's
Oh,
keeping the stars apart. We try to protect our young. We make really good music. Now, of course, none of this matters in the grand scheme of things. The sun is still going to turn into a red giant and boil our oceans away, but we don't live in the grand scheme of things. I think there is meaning in human life because there is meaning in us and in how we are bound together. There is meaning in loving and being loved and in hearing and being heard. Like when I'm thinking about why any of it matters, I always think about this line from Richard Wright. I would hurl words into this darkness, wait for an echo, and if an echo sounded, no matter how faintly, I would send other words to march, to fight, to create a sense of the hunger for life that gnaws in us all.
I think here he's like knocking on the door of the answer, but it's not quite there even. If everything's gonna die, then why does it matter? I think is a hard objection to counter. He's talking about community, talking about like these are highly meaningful. Like gives the I'm gonna give the nihilist the benefit of the doubt. It gives the sensation of meaning, of meaningfulness. But as we kind of get closer, it's like, well, what kind of meaning can a creature create for itself? That's super difficult, and I don't know how we get further than that. Can a creature create meaning for itself? And I think what we're hearing here is yes, but that meaning is very pitiful. If it's just my relationship with my family or with my local community, like I don't see a purpose in the grand scheme of things. If I kind of trying to lift up my perspective and be like, well, where does this go? We're kind of lost, right? We can keep going, I think.
I reject nihilism because I believe in the value of hurling words into the darkness, not least because it is possible that you, when you are in the darkness, may echo them back. I know that optimism at the moment feels foolish and cringy, and nihilism feels like a way of trying to cut yourself off from the reality of feeling so you don't have to grapple with all the complexities and pain. I get it, I do it too, but I would encourage you to hurl your words into the darkness, to never give up on trying to bring light and noise to where otherwise there would only be cave darkness and silence. Equally, I would ask you to be an echo, to tell your friends and loved ones that you hear them, not just the words that they're saying, but also the feelings and thoughts that lie beneath those words. I think the opportunity and responsibility of personhood is to make meaning and to acknowledge the meaning in others' lives. We do this through loving and helping others, and through allowing others to love and help us, and through deepening our shared understanding of the universe and our place in it. So yeah, maybe nothing matters, but only until we make things matter. And maybe life is meaningless, but only until we make it meaningful. Hank, I'll see you on Friday.
Okay.
To die tomorrow.
So, what I see here, at least, and let me know if I'm off base. I think it's easy to get into your own head, and so I really appreciate somebody coming in and talking to me about this. He points out that his intuition is that people make their own meaning and validate or instruct the meaning creation process of somebody else. I think we're starting to veer into some sort of relativism. I think it's pretty clear. I don't think I'm making too much of a jump here, where meaning is a subjective creation process, and it's not based off of anything in the world, but it's completely internal. It's completely kind of bent in on itself. There's a word for that, and I can't remember. But it's kind of self-consuming. But then we have a level of meaning that's kind of reaching out. I think the only level of meaning, personally, I think, I believe, I guess, I think meaning can only be got by reaching outside of yourself to some sort of level of meaning that's real. Because otherwise, again, what kind of meaning can be created by a human, right? Like, what power do we have to create meaning? Like, it's easy to say that we just are kind of we're creating sensations within ourselves, where we're kind of just making ourselves feel good. But we need to, like, break out. I think it's my theism instructs the way I see the world, and I think that John here is kind of, again, fence sitting. He doesn't want to say that there's any meaning inherent in the world, which is fair. Like, that's what he doesn't see it, but he also doesn't want to let go of anything that's great, or he doesn't want to let go of anything good that comes from that. He doesn't want to let go of human rights. Like, human rights make no sense at all for just interesting creatures. What does it mean for a creature to be interesting? Does that mean that they deserve rights? What in the world says that? You have to get back to some sort of traditional understanding in some point of humans having inherent value, and you can't get that from science. Just because something's interesting doesn't mean it has inherent value. Because I think all monkeys are interesting does not mean I save one more monkey versus putting it down because it's gotten too crazy, right? That goes for any animal. And why does it not go for humans? I think there's a clear kind of point here, which is, like, humans are different. Humans are different, and, like, in what way are they different? And if we go from a purely scientific materials perspective, we're not going to find it. How could we? Like, if we're looking for meaning in science doesn't have anything to do with meaning, so we're not going to find it. And if you're finding meaning in science, you're not doing science, right? Science is about observations. But we can't observe meaning. We can observe sensations of meaning, but we can't observe meaning. So what are we doing? We have to do something else. We have to be doing philosophy. We have to be doing theology. But we can't be doing anthropology. Like, that won't give you meaning. And so I have difficulty with part of this point of, if we're making our own meaning structures, then meanings can conflict, right? Meanings, I can challenge you, you can challenge me for my meaning, but we're both equally correct. I don't think that's the case. I think meaning is a little bit, is a complex landscape. I do want to talk a little bit about that, but I wanted to briefly touch on this clip. If I feel crazy saying this, if John Green reminds me of anybody right now, it is Jordan Peterson. Jordan, I think, understands basically about meaning and the importance for it, and understanding it in a historical context of, like, there are regimes that have taken away meaning from people and the effect it's had on people, and the intense oppression that comes with that. But he doesn't have a source for it, and he has difficulty with it. And so he in this section, I think Paul points it out right here, very well, but you'll see.
Whether or not that faith is justified. And so and that's partly why it's faith, is that you have to put the cart before the horse. You can't wait around. You know, in in the book of Revelation, when Christ comes back to judge everyone, he says something like, if you were neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. And so his harshest judgment isn't reserved for outright, unrepentant, committed sinners, and certainly not for people who are 100% committed to the courage of their faith, but the judgment is harshest for people who play both ends against the middle and who won't commit. And one of the things...
Jordan, you got to feel that, my friend. I mean, because if we've had a fence sitter, it's you.
things that...
So, and it's this. I think this is the, to use the language here, this is the sin of John Green, is the nihilist is pushing their way through. They're saying, I've seen where this all leads. I've done all the thinking that's required. I've reached the end of what I can do with this framework, and it's this. Nothing matters. And I respect that. At least you've come up to a conclusion. I disagree, and we can have conversations, but you've come to the end of it, and you've done the thinking, and you've been honest, right? If I can accuse nihilists of anything, I can't accuse them of dishonesty. At least they're being honest. Now, I know this sounds bad. I don't accuse John Green of dishonesty, but I think he is sitting on the fence. He has one side where he wants all the meaning from it, but he wants the freedom of the self-made meaning, and so he's kind of holding on to both, but he's being pulled apart, right? He's being pulled one way or the other. He's not able to control both and kind of synthesize. So he's kind of weakly kind of fitting together stuff, because the difficulty with saying meaning comes from a real place is that that's an intense statement, right? Like, if I say it comes from one place, that means that there's no one else that you can get it from. Like, right? Like, this is real, and this is like singular, and there's no room for relativism. On the other end, relativism is branching out, and if everything is true, then what is true, right? Things can't be contradictory. It can't be contradicting and be true at the same time. This seems beyond anything that we can understand. I don't think that's necessarily true, and I know that there's a few formulations that I'm kind of simplifying for this. I understand that, like, there are different types of relativism, so I'm not digging into that right now. But let's go to this thing I wrote. I'm planning on making this into a blog post, but I kind of just want to read some of this out. So, here John wishes to contend with nihilism and explore meaning. By no means am I a nihilist, but I have significant amount of respect for the thoughtful nihilists. Unlike many, they are actually searching for an answer to the questions and reach the end of endless relativism. If we say that the answers to life's questions are infinitely many and they are equally meaningful, then how do we know there is any meaning? We have leveled the hills and the valleys to make sure no one has to live in the valleys. But now that houses are built, no one's view is picturesque. Within the city, endless buildings are all the same height, with nothing interesting to see. Even on the edge of this symbolic town, there is nothing to see but empty plains. The world stretches out before them, and they can clearly see the cruel irony that there is nothing to see. The thoughtful nihilists are not the joyful few we see in the internet that say, have fun, it doesn't matter, we will all be dead soon enough. I think this is the common thing that you see a lot. You'll see memes about, like, what you think nihilists are, and it's like the doomer meme, like, oh man, this this sucks. Like, I'm depressed. And then we see like what real nihilists are, and it's people out partying and like having a good time. I think the people who've thought it through are. I don't know how you can do anything but be scared. Because what's gonna await you, right? Like, you're hurling at your death, and what's gonna meet you. I don't think there's anything scarier than the void. We look at Nietzsche, and a lot of people look at his proclamations as a proud cheering of nihilism, but anybody who is familiar with him and his works, they know that there's nothing that he feared more than nihilism. Talks about how God is dead, and there isn't enough water in the world to wash our hands of his blood, and how nihilism is what comes of a world that has killed God. I think this is exactly what he's talking about. Is this eternal fear. And so I think nihilists who are serious are the ones who see that this is all a very hopeless situation, and there's nothing that can save you from this. Those who think nihilism through see that anything is then if anything is meaningless, then the most meaningless thing must be one's own happiness. Who cares if you are happy or not in this world? We are hurled between the stars and could die at any minute. Why does pollution matter? John talks about the depraved actions of humans causing the extinction of endless species, and the nihilist would respond, who cares? And if you can think of someone who does, why do they matter? John does not have the tools to fight nihilism, because he finds himself between two worlds trying desperately to hold on. It's difficult to continue the conversation without dipping into personal experience of meaning, and by then it's too late. The question then comes, what is the experience of a few humans in the expanse of the cosmos? In the end, John is too late. The battle is over, the nihilists have won the race to the end of the world, and you are lagging behind, holding on to what you desire, meaning. I've heard many attempts to ground meaning outside of traditional worldviews, but they always seem to fail on simple tests. Nihilists, like children who don't get what they want, pout and ask for nothing. They at least will be able to get it. But our modern man wants everything. He wants meaning and to find it in money. He wants to love and find it with whomever he wants. He wants the flexibility of relativism and the agreement of all traditions. He wants 2 1s to equal 3, and at the same time, he wants it to equal 2. I have no problem with one, but both are not possible. He is left contradicted and in a mess on the ground. At least the nihilist is standing proudly naked facing the corner in timeout. So, I think this says it well. I respect John for putting this out. Thank you for kind of giving some insight into all of this. But this is my critique, basically. I think we're left kind of lost here. And I think the way can't be found on the fence. It has to be found in difficult conversations, in places that you don't want to be. I feel like right now this position is too comfortable, and growth doesn't happen in comfort. So that's my brief thing. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great day.